It's time for today's episode of the UGA Sports Live Podcast, recorded in front of a slightly tipsy studio audience at world-famous Champy's Fried Chicken. We will have the latest on Georgia Bulldogs football, basketball, and recruiting. Watch live and send us your questions on the 11 Alive Sports page on Facebook. Be advised this podcast is off the record and not safe for work. Also, be sure to subscribe to the UGA Sports Live Podcast on iTunes and Google Play.
Having some technical difficulties today. This is why we need Radi here. He's the dad, and he takes care of all of this kind of stuff. So normally we don't have to worry about it. But anyway, we will give people a second to hop on here. Thank you so much for tuning in. While we're getting going, want to shout out all of our sponsors. We've got many of them. We're here at Champy's on Baxter. It's great to be back with you, Coach Donnan. Thanks for being here as always. Gotta love Champy's, and also found out today, good news that one of these lovely young waitresses here, her grandfather, Alan Swan out of Tifton, big listener to the show. She
Well,
just
that's good.
Found out, yeah.
Glad to hear
thanks
Alan's listening. And I tell you, his granddaughter's doing a good job of running this place. Our two invaluable controllers are over in Thailand hanging out. So we got a makeshift show in a lot of ways, but with 2 weeks since we've had one, there's a whole lot of stuff out there, and certainly you've been involved with the Rivals Challenge and also the opening, so you're definitely going to be the guy with all the scoop today. So looking forward to people catching up with us and understand that, hey, Tiger Woods doesn't shoot a 68 every time. Sometimes it takes us a little while to get going, and we're ready to rock and roll.
Well, hey, you gotta. It was 2 weeks already. You gotta wait another week, or you gotta wait another hour. What's another hour when you're getting to enjoy this? But like I said, want to shout out all the sponsors. Athens Ford, a huge sponsor both of the show and the site. Academia Brewing, we're out here obviously drinking up a beer. I'm glad to be able to finally sit down and enjoy my cold beer today.
Enjoy it.
Got Your Pie out here, big supporter of ours. Aaron Overhead Doors, 678-960-3360. You can get in touch with them. They're huge supporters of our show and as well as our website. We love those guys out there. And Cable East, Robert Wall. And, of course, you're catching us right here on 365 Game Day, Georgia Bulldogs 365. This is the new home of UGA Sports Live on a week-to-week basis. So
we're going to find out who really wants it today.
That's right.
If anybody waited this long, they got to be big supporters. But
we will take as many questions as we can get today. We got a ton of scoop, ton of info to get going. But if you got questions, send them in. We'll try to get to as many as we can. But let's first off dive right in on some of this recruiting, because it's been a big stretch. It's been a big season for it. Obviously, you mentioned we had Rivals 5-Star Challenge, the opening as well. Had a chance to watch Georgia commits at both of those, as well as some big-time Georgia targets at several of them. I'm going to start off talking a little bit about these commits. I got to tell you, there's probably nobody stronger in the country as far as boosting their ranking and where they stand right now than Marcus Roseme. I think that he did a fantastic job at the Rivals 5-Star Challenge as well as the opening, showcasing all the things that got people so excited when he committed, and there's definitely reason for that to continue.
The one thing that I always take away from that is, in the old days, I didn't have any associations with you, so I didn't really have anybody to talk to, but, a couple guys from ESPN that I know pretty well, Tom Luganbill and also Trent Dilfer, who actually runs the thing, and I don't really try to get on their case too much because they got a lot going on, but just a couple texts back and forth. But they were really excited about Roseme and his explosiveness, and just to get a guy like that coming in. And the prophets of doom are all down on our receiving core right now. I really don't see it, except from the experience standpoint. I really like the way that some of these guys have looked. Fortunately for me, with the camps that they have around here, it's a little bit more access over there.
Sure.
And you go over there and you see these guys working out on the side. But, boy, when you see Asia on top of the guys that we have, like, Robertson really looked good in the spring. Nobody got to see him in the spring game. Landers coming on strong. And the one thing that I really feel like is the scoop that I want to bring to the people out here, and I hate to waste it if nobody's really listening. I hope they're watching. But, last year we ended up with some guys coming out early, and that's going to happen, when you got a good program. And sometimes they get good advice, and sometimes maybe it's little delusions of grandeur and things don't work out quite as well. And so our head coach, who's always thinking above the stratosphere on things, he decided that he needed to give these kids something to compare to when they get ready for the draft. And so last week, before they broke for when they're at the maximum of their lifts and working out and all, before they broke for a little bit of a July 4th type, a couple days off, they had a combine at UGA over here that had 4 different groups that were tested just like the combine, except for the lifts, and they did their own lifts. But so basically it's going to give them a chance to see exactly what they run on a laser, what their arm spans are, all these different things that so hey, you're not just counting on some agent or some guy whistling Dixie saying, hey, you're going to really step up here and do it. But, reality is, if you're going to leave this place and go chase a dream, you better have some valuable times and some things to measure by. And it was just brilliant stroke by Kirby seeing that. I'm sure some teams do that. You get times on them and all that, but to go through the actual shuttles, all the different things they do, and you have a combine grade right there based on what you did at Georgia. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
To look at going into, and we just had some smoke times. I'm not going to say a whole lot about the different times because that's not my deal.
Sure.
But I guarantee you one thing: if you run a 4.3 laser, somebody is giving you a gasoline enema, man. And I'm just telling you now, we had 2 guys that, I kind of got you to guess on one. Eric Stokes did it, and nobody's talking receiver, but Simmons ran a 4.3 laser, man. I'm just telling you now, this guy can smoke it. Had a really good time. He's up there about 2:30, but I just give Kirby a lot of credit for thinking that.
You don't get that experience often. That's one of the first times I've heard about a college. I think that Georgia's MO with these guys has largely been ways. And
but let's just say you're a great player, Jake Reuse, coming out of UGA. This is what second round, third round did at your position. Now, what makes you think that you're going to be able to do that? So at the same time, if you had those unbelievable, it can backfire on us too because but Kirby wants the best for everybody, just like that's the way he wants it to be. But there's some guys that probably tested a lot better and then some of them got a reality pill that are going to have to work at it. So but the big thing for us, the good news is we got a bunch of players that can run, jump, hit, and
receiver core, and something that happened that we haven't been on air since it went down was from a lot of people. Obviously, a terrible situation for everyone involved. Nothing but best wishes to that young woman and her family. But a lot of people thought Holloman would be the guy going into this year.
Well,
that was my expectation.
Yeah, he had a lot of, compared to the other guys, he had a lot more catches and everything, but. It's nothing we can do about it now. But we also signed. Let's get on with this now. We also signed another guy from Louisiana that can flat out fly, right?
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt.
Committed
about it.
One.
Committed,
right?
yeah. And that was Corey Wren, the 3-star speedster out of. He's right around the New Orleans area, Harvey, Louisiana, I believe he's at. Plays at John Curtis, which is one of the great programs in New Orleans. Yeah, huge commitment there. To tack him on with Roseme at the same time. Hey, you had to love that, I think.
Well, it's position specific. A slot guy with that kind of speed. Hopefully Robertson stays 2 more years. But if he has a big year, who knows? But you got to have a guy in there that can really, go to the next level as far as extending the field. If a safety busts coverage and you break it down the middle, or if they roll to a cover 3 where you can split the seams. Where basically 4 vertical type stuff, but. I'm really happy with those 2 additions, and maybe there's another one. But go ahead and keep going on the opening here.
Well, hold on. You mentioned the commits at the wide receiver position, and something that we've talked about a lot on this show, and I think that it needs to be brought back up in this instance. with the Holloman dismissal, you've got a guy who just came into the program and learned a lot of those intangibles that you were looking for, that veteran leadership that you're going to be looking for. So I think that's a big.
He's got a working relationship with Coach Coley, the fact what he can do. So you don't bring a senior in like that unless he's a guy, how he's going to not only fit, but how does he compare to the players you got. That's where Kirby did when he brought the kid from Alabama, the defensive back. He felt like that kid could really focus in and help us that first year because Absolutely. He had working knowledge of him. So that's a big lick. And with us losing Holloman, I like the fact that Cager's a big target in the red zone. But I'm just going to tell you right now, George Pickens.
Yeah, I think he might alleviate some of your concerns as well.
We don't say this much on the show, but he definitely makes my mouth water. And he's got the just got that little air about him walking around. You know what I mean? He just he expects to do well. It's a difficult situation going against our secondary now, because I'm telling you now, and this is one of the things we said after spring ball, and we talked about doing a good job on the running game and all that. But our defensive back depth. When you've got DJ Daniel and Stevenson at second team corner, and Smith and safety back there along with Reese, and then you got Devod Wilson as the star. I mean, those guys are SEC caliber starters.
Oh, no question.
So I like that depth on the secondary, and I think the way Pickens just goes out there and competes against them is just. And these guys respect him. He's got the hands. He understands coverage. He's jumped in there pretty well. And another sleeper guy that's just going to really do well is Blaylock, because he just got that moxie about him too. He got a lot of confidence and just got a feel for. I always like those receivers. That's where Terrence Edwards jumped in there. He'd never been a receiver before. He played quarterback, but he really just understood coverages and could go. He had to develop his hands, and he had a few drops over the years, but he really understood what to do, and that's a very vital part of being a receiver nowadays, because I would hate to have to try to read all the coverages we play. Our defense, I've told you before, we got so many different checks and stuff, and our guys do a great job with it, but we got a lot of different looks back there.
Sure, absolutely. And you mentioned that depth in the secondary. The secondary, and that's for me such a big turn that Georgia's taken in here.
And that and the O-line have been the two most demonstrative areas. I never can pronounce the name right.
Lewis Seen.
Seen. What is it?
I think it's Seen.
Another guy that just steps out there and got a lot of. He just knows what he's doing. I like the fact that a guy leaves from Texas and comes in here, and because he wants to get coached up, and that's what he's going to get from Kirby and Coach Warren and Coach Lanning. They do a really good job.
Absolutely. I want to touch on something with Lewis, because there's a guy that he's working on out in Texas I want to talk about. But first, I want to talk about Athens Ford. Call them at 844-442-4432. You can get in touch with them. Over 1,000 vehicles on the lot right now as it stands. They've always got specials running. Currently, it's every day out there. You're going to get the great service. You're going to get the lifetime powertrain warranty, and those guys are going to work their magic to keep you happy. So go out there and see them. Ford Expedition XLT Limited and Platinum, $11,000 off currently. The 2019 Ford Mustang EcoBoost, $22,835. And, everybody's loving the 2019 Ford F-150 XLT. You can go get the 302A Crew Cab, $15,000 off. And all of these specials good through the end of July. Make sure you get over to athensford.com. They got a comprehensive list of new car care of their customers, and that's why we support them. They support us, and we're thankful that we have them on board. But you mentioned Lewis Sine, and he's a guy who has played an interesting role in, the world of all of this now, because he was a guy who like you said, he came from Texas, and he knows a lot of these young guys. One of the guys I spoke to at both the Rivals 5-Star Challenge and the opening, Georgia commit Jalen Kimber.
Ooh,
And
did you see his spark?
His spark score was off the charts.
Explain what spark score is.
So your spark score is a composite of a couple of events. It's going to be your 40-yard dash, your vertical leap, your Powerball toss, and then your shuttles.
Well, let me ask you this. Is 42 a pretty good vertical jump?
42 is a very good vertical jump.
And what?
I believe his 40 was at Rivals. It was a 4. This, though, once again, like I said, in Dallas, came out there. I believe he was third out of.
Only thing I know is you didn't. I was trying to bust you up and get all this info, but you were working too hard. But you
score. You get a 4.44 40-yard dash. 7,810 watts. Agility, 4.02 seconds in agility drills. Powerball, he threw that thing 42 feet off of his knees. Those 5 categories, he was 99th percentile, 99th percentile, 98th percentile, 99th percentile, 99th percentile. The Nike camps have tested
and
all
he's
year.
very competitive in the coverage one-on-one. Didn't you think?
No question.
At Rivals,
No question.
We could see a little bit more of that, but as we got now. I just marvel at the corners. I mean, and by far, got to move in there quicker was Campbell. But there's another guy. You got Webb and you got McGee. I mean, it's just, outside backer room with all those guys.
Absolutely.
I mean, I tell you, it looks like somebody cloned those guys when you look at them.
Extracted the DNA from Lorenzo Carter and then just started growing them over there in Buttsmere. Those guys. I mean, that the build is so athletic and so impressive. Kimber, the one knock I did want to put on Kimber, and this is not a knock so much as it is just pointing this out. 165 pounds. He's a little bit light right now. He's very thin. You see that when he's out there. That'll come with time. But he'll put on the weight. He'll keep the speed. I think that's not a concern. I think that Georgia, though, has a kid right now who is at doing those things at this weight. You put another 20 pounds on him, suddenly he's going to be out there banging with these big receivers and covering these guys up because he did a great job of that at the Rivals 5-Star Challenge.
Yeah, and I think any program, regardless if you got any kind of strength program and nutrition program and ability to counsel these guys and help them, what to eat, when they eat, all that, you're just going to see a big increase in their power and their explosiveness. And I just really like the way Coach Sinclair and their staff have taken some of the smaller guys and, a guy like Cook now. You look at a before and after on him. He looked like one of those guys on the beach, you kick sand around, and now he looks great. And a lot of those guys have just gotten – well, part of it's maturity for sure, but we expect so much from these freshmen now, particularly these 5-stars to do it very quickly. And, he had that injury at the end of the year, but there's another guy that just really has explosive power to, quickness to just turn a game around. We got some game changers, and I was just walking back in to go to my car, and some of those guys were in there practicing catching punts with Camarja and another couple punters, and just there's some guys back there that would scare me if I was punting to them. Now, there's some really good punt return, and of course we lose a great one in Miko, but some very explosive guys back there catching punts.
I did want to talk about a couple more. You mentioned these game changers. Had a chance to see 3 other commits for Georgia in action over the course of these camps, and that was Tate Ratledge, Nazir Stackhouse, and Jamil Burrows. I wrote at UGASports.com. I thought Jamil struggled at the opening. That's now given that's a tough drill anyway for defensive linemen, as he did at the regionals. I thought
he's going to be 11-on-11 type guy to me. A lot of the video and watch Tate on his kickback, and just a lot of potential. And you look at our tackle situation with losing maybe Wilson on top, like Mays. Ability to do the same thing, and this Trust kid looks good too coming in. You talk about a guy that's really redeveloped his body pretty quickly without anybody helping him. And just in the couple weeks he's been here, he's a very good-looking kid now. I really like his looks.
Yeah, I mean, he was a guy who, he wasn't carrying a lot of bad weight. But he was a big guy.
Just a pup.
As you said, yeah. He's reshaped the body. So
Big pup, but he's just a pup.
Now, Nazir was injured while I was out at the opening, so I didn't get to see him participate. But you mentioned Tate, and Tate, I thought, had just a fantastic showing. He did, get got on a couple of reps, and that's going to happen. But the biggest thing that I can say about a kid like that, and I wrote this in an article over at UGASports.com, so go check it out if you get a chance. It was our after-action report on both of those. Go against the level of competition.
I mean, he's going against Breezy, who's the number one player
Right.
this year, and he's going against year who – you said, hey, you need to look this guy up and tell them about him. Of course, they already knew about him. We got him coming in here. So, but somebody just look him up on Rivals and watch a little tape on Foreman.
Yeah.
I mean, he looks like ready for the league right now, doesn't he?
Yeah, he was tremendous. He was absolutely fantastic.
Is he any kin George Foreman?
It wouldn't surprise me.
But he's got a few George
with
Foreman grills. So, I mean, we got to get some of those. But
he was for Tate, though, the opportunity to play against that level of competition, I think, and play as well as he did. That's what you want to see. He doesn't get to do that on a week-in, week-out basis. I mean, single-A private ball is what it is. There are good players that play in that league. There are good players that come out of that league.
Good point.
But it is not an all-star.
Overwhelming to me about him, the way he presented himself, and you were there and gave us a good shot on in his own ability, but also if there's ever been anybody wanting to go to Georgia, he got that across to me. And I think that's something you just got to have. You got to have that in your program to be, a potential captain or a potential leader. You got to recruit leadership as much as you, on top of ability. And he looks like the kind of guy that, is going to step up and be that. And you've talked about Broderick Jones, and nobody really mentioned him. He's been recruited so long ago, but I'm telling you, that's a big, strong guy too. And then you add Braum in there. I mean, those are three really good players that are just solid as a rock.
Now, you did lose one commit out of that room, and that was Akinola. Obviously, flipped his commitment to Texas A&M. Personal reasons at hand. Wanted to stay closer to family. God bless the kid. I hope it works out for him.
I think that's a situation where you just can't get involved in trying to critique that. But, he's known for a long time, though, that his mother had a situation. So
Sure.
I don't think it's an overnight deal that he just decided to stay close to home. I just know this. When teams like Texas A&M, on kids around Houston, and LSU, kids around Louisiana, when they put the bite on you, you got to really, really have a lot going for you to leave when they really come after you hard. And it looks like Jimbo, Damian Craig was a lead recruiter on him, and they just stayed on him, just like we're staying on some guys trying to flip them. Like, ones it's a long process, and, it's a long way between now and December.
Now, one other guy that I did want to talk about commit-wise, Carson Beck. We had a chance to see him play a couple times out at the opening. And, look, not his best showing either, I didn't think, personally. But there's only so much that can be garnered out of 7-on-7 play. The film looks a lot better than what we saw, so I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. I wrote up my evaluation just based on what I saw out there. I just said I didn't think it was his finest performance. I thought he could have done a little bit better working downfield. But, look, if James Coley says we think you're the best quarterback in America, hey, I'm willing to go along with it. I'm much more interested in what he's going to do at Mandarin this fall.
That makes a good point there. It's hard to really see, in shorts what a guy can do for sure. You always want to look at the tape, but you also, as a quarterback evaluator, you got to see them live to see their movement, their arm strength, their hands, everything about them. And, what I've seen on the kid on tape, I like the way he was able to show the leadership to take his team to the state championship. When he was on campus, I got a chance to look at him a little bit, and, he's got a big arm. There's no question about that. He's got really work on his footwork. Anytime kids got big legs and big, heavy ankles, it's always a little bit of a situation where you got to really work on your movement, and hopefully he can do that. And he's probably a little nervous throwing it up. Conversely, at the same time, Caleb Williams was here, and he didn't let that bother him. Spectacular when he was here. So, but I've talked to Coley. I'm not divulging anything about what I talked about. We got our pick of a lot of different guys, and this is a guy we believe in, and I'm happy that he's coming here. I'm not going to make any substantive move on somebody that I don't know that much about yet. But and I think that's the thing about these 7-on-7 deals anyhow. I think the one thing that I would tell most of the fans, most teams now, even though these kids do 7-on-7 and all it helps them develop, are getting away from 7-on-7 in practice because you got to see how these guys do with live bullets, man. You got to see how so we do team pass here a lot more. I read where Lincoln Riley was talking about OU hardly ever does 7-on-7 anymore. So what we do is we'll put up 11-on-11 and we'll let one side or the other rush and the other one will be dead. So you don't know which one's rushing, and then your quarterback's got some kind of a rush, but he's still throwing against the secondary. But you avoid those big pileups that can happen when guys get their knees bent over and all that. And then once in a while we'll just let the interior three come, So, but we'll see how that goes. But I'm sure everybody on your board's been evaluating all that. And
I tell people all the time, listen, don't take my word as the gospel. I'm telling you this.
I do.
I understand, but I'm telling you.
I'm not talking about in that. You were saying, hey.
I'm telling you this.
But a lot of it's luck of the draw too. Who's your
Right.
receivers?
Yep.
And they got 3 quarterbacks on each team. So whichever guy's the hottest ones and they win is going to probably be playing more. You found out 2 kids that haven't even committed ended up being in the top 3 out there. That Stroud kid.
Yep.
Haynes
King.
And then that King kid that I hope he doesn't go to Tennessee, and I hope he doesn't go to A&M because we got to play A&M. But he's up with Duke still, and who's the other one? There's 4 of them.
I don't know. I'd have to go back and look. But he was very impressive.
He looked good, and so did
the
the kid that's committed to Texas.
Hudson Card. Yeah, so as well. I want to move into some targets. We also got some questions we want to get
to. Some targets, that's good.
But I want to shout out first to our friends out at Aaron Overhead Doors in Buford. You can call them 678-960-3360. Take care of all your overhead garage door needs. If you're looking to maybe put one in the house, just to raise up on a breezy summer day. Not that we've had too many of those, unfortunately. But as we mentioned every week about Aaron Overhead Doors, it's all about customer service with these guys. 562 verified nearby now reviews, 4.95 rating on there. Just tremendous work. These guys work all over the Atlanta metro area. So if you're wondering if they come service it, if you're metro, hey, you got a great shot. They get all the way over to Marietta, up into Gainesville, near to Dawsonville, out toward Athens a little bit, and they're always looking for an excuse to go give some love to Aaron Overhead Doors and tell them we sent you at UGAsports.com. Because he just blew me away. First time I'd had a chance to see him in person, it does not. His last name begins with an R. And that was Keely Ringo.
Oh, good Lord. I mean, I thought you'd seen him before.
Well, I'd seen him before, but not watching him as intently last year as I did this year, knowing that he's a Georgia target.
Yeah, you got 3 guys like Ringo and Milton and Sewell. Come on, man.
Yeah, now that is a tremendous trio.
And add Flo in there, too.
Sure.
And just freaks.
Ringo, 6'2", every bit of it. Tremendous body. I mean, looks like an NFL corner. Looks like he could step onto campus tomorrow and play if he needed to. Put down the laser, 4.37, I believe it was.
Explain the difference between a laser and a hand time for the average fan.
Well, I mean, you're going to have it's obviously about reducing the human variable. It's about taking out the quick start or the late start. It's about when this kid goes, when he hits that first thing, that first reader, it's plug they use at the combine. It's what we used out at Rivals 5-Star Challenge. Keely Ringo comes out, drops the 4.35 this year. Wins back-to-back fastest man titles at the challenge, and tremendous in coverage. The thing that impressed me the most, you see a guy like that, and you see these 5-stars so often go out at these events, and the first little nick or the first, I'm done. This kid was cramping up all day. It's hot in there. We were at the Georgia Dome, or at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
They didn't have the top over.
They did have the top. They had the top open for a little while, and it got humid in there. It got real humid. They were filming that Carrie Underwood Waiting for a Sunday Night commercial in there. So they had the roof open, but they ended up closing it. The heat and the humidity, though, had Ringo cramping really seriously. I mean, he would get done with some runs, and he had to stretch.
It's a different type playing in domes when, in the middle of the winter for cramping you, because it's just a little tidbit here. You talk about laser and then the clocking with. I was at Florida State, and we had all these NFL scouts are there, and Dick Haley, who was the head of the Steel Curtain guy. He's the one that recruited signed all those guys, drafted all those guys that won all those championships, and he was down there. And this pro scout was out. There weren't near as many as there used to be, like for pro days, as there is now. And he went up to this one guy. He said, "You're not going to time that guy like that, are you?" And he said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You're not holding your watch right." And he said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You don't time him with your thumb. Your thumb's too slow. You got to put your index finger on there and hit that thing when he stops and start." He said, "That's a little too slow with the thumb." So anybody sees a thumb, somebody timing somebody with their thumb, tell them to wake up and smell the roses. Have you ever thought about that?
I really hadn't, to be honest.
Well,
with
you got to have that trigger finger ready to do it. And when that guy starts, you got to do it. When he comes in, do it there, and you don't move your hand and do like that. That's another 8.
Sure.
So you just got to be steady, and hit it.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Tell Radi, if he's watching over in Turkey, to go time somebody going over there and get that whole country straight. That's why Radi's over there. He's been sent by the UN as a diplomatic ploy. He's going in there with a big beard, and he's trying to go incognito and try to help the United States get some diplomatic relationships.
I saw him right before we came on. He is looking
yeah,
a little burly
he's
with
just
the beard.
a national traveler.
Yeah, he really is. But to get us back on track, Ringo, super impressive. Like I said, super physical. Georgia considered the leader. I suppose this is of the world. The guys out on the West Coast are talking about it. Georgia is the board. The other guy you mentioned, Kendall Milton, another one out on the West Coast, UGASports.com. Go check that out. Got some quotes from him about his last visit to Georgia, that official visit, what it meant, what Georgia holds, what makes them special. This is a kid who came out. I thought he performed very well at the opening, did a lot of the things that you would expect out of him. Look, he runs, he's in that 4.5 range. He's not exactly a burner, but he doesn't have to be. He's built. The term that you described him as, this was my first time seeing him in person, and you said, this kid looks like Todd Gurley, and he really does. That's how he's built. His father, as you've also mentioned, looks like he could probably be a hell of a linebacker somewhere as well. But this kid, again, I've spoken to my West Coast sources. I've spoken to our guys at Ohio State, LSU, Bama even. It's the feeling around around Kendall is Georgia. I put that prediction in on Rivals.com here a couple weeks back.
One of the things we always do with really on this show, I have a hard time giving the guy a check unless I really feel good about it. So, I told you I was going to check Ratledge and I was going to check Braum, and I got a close to check on this guy because it's just too much can happen in the next 2 weeks. But he's had I tell you, I watched him over here in the spring when he was here before his official visit. He was out there. He was watching the drills. He was looking at the players. But this guy was involved, like this, like he's scouting out where he's going to play. There's nothing wrong with talking to people about yourself and all that, but he a guy that just fits in here. You know what I mean?
No, I completely agree.
And I like the way Kirby and